my name is Mark Oakley. I am one of the lead campaigners for a campaign called Evusheld for the UK. So basically, we represent approximately 500,000 people in the UK that are immuno-suppressed, which basically means that because of things like blood cancer, transplants, autoimmune diseases, lupus, sarcoidosis, things like this, either because of the disease or the treatment that they have to control their immune system, the vaccines basically have very little effect. And so we are still in the position that we were in at the beginning of this pandemic, that the vast majority of us are having to live an extremely restricted life, and in some cases, like me, still shielding. I've just gone over 960 days of living a shielded life. There is a drug available that would give us some protection. It's being used in over 32 countries worldwide successfully, including every single G7 country apart from the UK, because the British government is not putting it through the same process that it's putting through all the other COVID drugs, and has basically tried to put it into the long grass and put it through the NICE process, which means it won't actually clear the NICE process until probably about May of next year, and then there's again a 90-day wait until the NHS has to take it up. So you are looking at people that are shielding potentially going through till close to this time next year of still going through that regime. The company that makes the drug is AstraZeneca, which is a British company. They've recently made it available in the UK privately, in an effort to try and get as many people that at least can afford it that protection. But you're looking probably in the region of somewhere between £2,000 to £3,000 to get that dose that will give you the protection, and that will last for 6 months. In America, where people are getting it, they're having to pay an administration fee of around about $180 if it isn't covered on their insurance scheme. So it's a very big disparity, and it means that people are really stuck with a hard choice. And there are some people that no way in a million years are they going to be able to afford to pay that money, and nor should they have to. The group we run, we've got about 2,000 people on it, and we see absolutely heartbreaking stories of people that are simply having to make decisions between how to turn the heating on or eating at the moment, yet alone being able to pay that sort of money for a drug. People having to make a choice between going to work in an unsafe environment or carry on shielding to protect themselves. At the beginning of the pandemic, I had a successful landscaping company. You excuse me, I'm going to put my dog out in a minute. A successful landscaping company. I had to shut it down overnight because it was quite obvious this wasn't going to be over in 5 or 6 weeks. I had to lay off 4 people, and that was the end. No support, and most people that are going through this don't have any support. I have 3 daughters. Can you just give me a minute? I'm just going to put the dog out. I know, apologies. Yeah, I've got 3 daughters. So 2 of them live at home. My eldest is 31. I've not cuddled her since back in 13th of March 2020. I haven't cuddled my 91-year-old mother. My 2 daughters go to school, but everything is difficult for people that are in this situation. Every day you have to make a decision on what's safe, because you're trying to still keep their life going so that it doesn't affect them, but you're trying to protect yourself as well. And you can see how it weighs on everybody in the family. So when we say there's 500,000 people in this predicament, and those are NHS figures, it's wider than that because it affects all the family. My daughters struggle with it. They're absolutely terrified of bringing the virus back home from school into the house. I've spent about 8 or 9 months of the 2.5 years living separate from family in the summer house in the garden. At times when the rates have been really high, they've been pinged as contacts. or when we've had COVID, and we have had COVID in the house. And it's just absolutely decimating, because you get to the point where you've got a couple of people in your family that are ill with COVID. My middle daughter didn't have COVID, but I was having to live separate from the house. So the family is effectively split into three. And I'm just absolutely scared witless of going into the house. And they just don't want to come near me for fear of giving it to their dad. And, you know, me ended up in hospital or possibly worse. And it is a very real prospect of something like that happening. People that are immunocompromised are at massive risk compared to the normal population, even the elderly. Someone with certain kidney diseases will be 6 times at higher risk of ending up in hospital in an ICU than somebody that hasn't got that. And the numbers in ICU that are immunocompromised are vastly disproportionate to the normal population. So you have to look at why the government isn't providing this drug. And it's a real brain scratcher, because economically it doesn't make sense, because although the drug is not a cheap drug, you're looking around about £500 a dose. For the benefits compared to what they would cost for people on going into ICU, taking up beds, taking up resources, and the length of time they will be there, that just economically doesn't weigh out. The amount of money that is held back from the economy by people not spending, not being able to work, not being able to contribute to the economy, doesn't weigh up from that point of view. And also the impact on the NHS as well. People that are in this situation that are immunocompromised are much more likely to be allowing the virus to harbour in their body. They've had cases where the virus has stayed in the body for up to 42 weeks, which gives more chance for new variants to form. So that's putting a bigger risk out there. And again, you are tying up with more resources in the NHS that you simply can't replace, which have a knock-on effect for normal appointments, cancer treatments, etc. So as a campaign group, we are working quite closely with a lot of MPs across parties. The all-party parliamentary group for the clinically vulnerable. So many clinicians, there's over 200 clinicians in the country that have signed up calling for this, 18 national charities, and yet still we're falling on deaf ears. We've gone through, in the last 6 months, we're on our 4th health secretary now, 3rd prime minister. And every time we get through this, it goes back to the accountability that was raised earlier. I spoke to my own MP last week. We ended up doing a vigil outside of Parliament with friends and family, because obviously people in this position couldn't attend. And my daughter spoke to our MP, and he was just absolutely horrified that nobody in this that's campaigning for this had even had a meeting with even a junior minister. It seems to be every time the wheel turns around, we have to start from scratch again, and there's just complete belligerence to even talk to people to try and resolve and hear our side of the story. And you know, this MP is quite a prominent backbench Tory MP as well, who's been in Parliament for 25 years. And it really just does seem to go to the heart of the matter that nobody is prepared now to make decisions, and nobody is capable. Certainly in the summer, when the Johnson government basically fell and they were just in limbo waiting for the new leader, the whole of sort of the civil service, the special advisors, etc., most of them had cleared out, and there was just nobody to deal with any of this or make the decisions. And that is why this particular aspect has ended up being put to the NICE process, because it was an easy option for them to say, we'll put it across to there. We don't have to deal with this now in front of us, and it's just kicked in the long grass for another 9 months, and we don't have to worry about it. But the problem is, it's leaving people in our position looking at the prospect of a 3rd winter which is bleak enough already. And every day you can look at the numbers, but every day there's still people dying needlessly that don't need to in this most vulnerable group. So yeah, that is basically our story of where we are and why we are pushing and campaigning for it, to try and get the normal choice of freedom that everybody else that has the benefit of the vaccine has.